A rally by neo-Nazis in the town of Newnan, Georgia, has drawn a strong police presence and many counter-protesters. The rally is an annual event to mark the birthday of Adolf Hitler. Now, some stores closed ahead of the rally to avoid supporting fascists in any way, and at least one person was arrested. Well, for more on this, we have reached Ford Fischer in Newnan, Georgia. He is the founder and editor-in-chief for News to Share. That's an online news site that aims to give voices to independent and citizen journalists. Ford, let's begin with the rally itself. What did you witness today?
Yeah, so there was expected to be 50 to 100 sort of neo-Nazis descending onto this town, and it ended up seeming a little shy of that, perhaps about 35. Police created a huge barrier around them, so there was a layer of fence, 2 layers of cops, and then another barrier between those guys and then all of the counter-protesters. And so counter-protesters had to go through several sort of checkpoints. They were ultimately searched, kind of deprived of anything that could possibly be used as a weapon. Even water bottles, headphones were theoretically something that could be used as a weapon, although notably not firearms. Firearms were allowed everywhere in the city, sort of oddly. But in any case, approximately 1,000 counter-protesters showed up to oppose them. And of them, I witnessed probably about a dozen be arrested in individual little scuffles with police. To my knowledge, I did not see any violence between Nazis and Antifa, not because they didn't want to, but because they were so thoroughly separated by the police presence.
Ford, I just want to make sure I understand you correctly. For the purposes of security, the police removed water bottles, but they did not remove guns?
Yeah, so although I wasn't close enough to the Nazis to see what they were armed with, there were at least 2 examples that I did sort of film and witness of left-wing counter-protesters who were carrying long rifles. And then many people just sort of in the town who are kind of weirded out that this has become sort of a left versus right conflict in their little sleepy town. A lot of locals were open carrying handguns as well, and were not prevented from doing so.
So how did the city respond? They knew that this protest was going to take place. What other precautions did they take?
It seemed like they were trying to avoid anything like what happened in Charlottesville last August. So they had police on every street corner, very, very heavily armed. They were arresting any Antifa-type members who basically fell out of line at all. In one case, I actually saw someone basically being arrested for jaywalking in front of the police. So basically, they were just keeping things very tight. And additionally, it seemed like they were using a lot of local vehicles that were non-police vehicles, like dump trucks and things like that, as blockades against streets. So the entire, probably about a 2 or 3 block radius around where the Nazi rally was supposed to happen, it would be impossible to attempt to drive a car into the situation. Of course, probably trying to prevent something like what happened to Heather Hare in August.
You mentioned Charlottesville, and I know you were there last time when a woman was killed in one of these protests. How do you think the shadow of Charlottesville has affected how the town or even the protesters move forward with today's events?
It seemed like the protesters were more aware of kind of the physical presence of these sorts of people because of this. I think that everything was sort of through a lens of we believe that people like this have killed before, and so we're out here to protect ourselves against it. So in this case, it wasn't just kind of left versus right. It seemed like there were a lot of people who were local and very against this. This is a town that voted 70% for Donald Trump. So at the same time, this town doesn't seem to want them there. It doesn't seem like a single one of the Nazi participants was local. So I think that the whole Charlottesville situation kind of bled over into how local people understood this and why everybody put so much attention into it. And of course, why the police came so perhaps even over-prepared.
Okay, Ford, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Ford Fischer is the founder and editor-in-chief for News to Share, and he's in Newnan, Georgia.